Hello everybody and welcome back to a brand new video. Make sure you like this video down below and subscribe to the channel if you are new. And today we have to talk about the changing electorate and talk about the new Republican strongholds and what Republicans can do in future elections to help grow their support in key areas necessary to win and continue to further shape the electorate in their favor. But first, I have to tell you guys about my friends over at Noble Gold. Now, it's not often you get a gift for yourself in the holidays, is it? So how does a free 22-karat American Gold Eagle coin sound? Not bad, huh? A free 22-karat American Gold Eagle coin in a special presentation box. But it's not that simple. To qualify, you have to take out a precious metals IRA or 401k rollover with Noble Gold. It makes a lot of sense right now to keep your savings and investments safe. Who knows what the new administration will do? And because Noble Gold has helped thousands of investors keep their retirement funds safe from Washington, they'll run through your options with no hard sell and help you protect them from being taken. So call 877-646-5347 and get the special coin offer. But don't hang around. That's 877-646-5347 or submit a request from the link in the description. All right, so today we are going to be talking about the new Republican strongholds and talk about where Trump improved this election cycle even further. And it's important that we first distinguish between a swing and a trend, because a swing happens regardless of the national environment. For example, if you win an election one time in the national environment popular vote, you win that by 3, and then the next election is tied, but the state doesn't move, the swing would be 0. However, the trend would be 3 points in your column the next time, if that makes any sense. There's a difference between a swing and a trend, so keep that in mind. There were only a few states that swung to the right this election cycle. However, there were many states that trended to the right or barely budged at all relative to the national environment. Now, it's important that we focus on Ohio and Iowa first, and I'm going to be talking about Florida, North Carolina, and Texas and the future of the Sun Belt and some kind of dual movement that we're seeing in the Sun Belt where some states are moving in opposite directions. It's very interesting to look at, but you look at Ohio and Iowa. These are states that the polls, we always like to talk about the polls and the election mafia. I haven't heard that term in a while, the term that I coined, by the way. But they were saying Ohio and Iowa were toss-ups. They were going to be razor thin. I said, no, it's going to be similar margins to last time. Ohio was roughly the identical margin to last time. Donald Trump won the state by over 8 percentage points. And this is with all of the votes in the state in currently. And many of these counties, even around suburban Cleveland, actually swung to the right and trended to the right. Every county around Cleveland actually did trend to the right. They all swung to the right as well. There was some movement away from Trump in the Cincinnati suburbs, which was different than what I originally expected. However, you saw massive shifts in these rural counties continuing to favor Donald Trump. But interestingly enough, you didn't see the same thing in western Pennsylvania. But you did see many counties move to the right in Ohio by close to 10%. And this is very interesting because this election was not a change election. The only difference was Hillary Clinton was not on the ballot, and that arguably affected Donald Trump negatively in places like Colorado and the Northeast where she was extremely unpopular. That's why you had the margins closer than expected, because you had a lot of third-party voters last time, and a lot of them voted for Obama in 2012. So as originally expected, they did move back to the Democrat column, but it was a much higher rate than I originally expected that to happen. But Ohio is now a safe red state, you could say. It's moving towards that. I think the next election, it will be Republican by 10 points or more. Doesn't matter who you run. I expect that a Biden administration will have approvals in the mid-40s. There will be many people that are on the left, the far left, you could even say, that will be disaffected by a Biden administration. And Donald Trump, if he does decide to run, he will be able to run on the same message that he did in 2016, the anti-elite sentiment that was used to take down Hillary Clinton. He could do the same thing against the career politicians in Biden or Harris or whoever the nominee is, based on the fact that he will once again be the outsider. But looking at Ohio was very interesting to look at the trends here. They were very different than the ones in Michigan and Pennsylvania even. It is a very Republican stronghold now in the state of Ohio. It used to be a bellwether. It used to be a swing state. Not anymore. And partially it is because the Republican Party and Donald Trump have talked about issues like free trade and why it's negatively impacting places like Cleveland. And Democrats used to represent that, but they've abandoned the people of Ohio. And that is why the map has changed. It was funny because Bush won Ohio in 04 barely, but he won it by driving up the margins in Hamilton County, which is where Cincinnati is. And you look at that county right now, and it voted for Biden by 16 percentage points. Very, very interesting how the times have changed. And the maps are changing, and Donald Trump, either way, was able to capitalize off of this. He flipped Mahoning County, which went for Hillary Clinton last time, actually. He flipped Mahoning County in eastern Ohio. So Donald Trump was able to improve in Ohio in many parts of the state, even the Cleveland suburbs, and that's why he was able to win the state by a massive margin again. So if you're looking at the 2024 electoral map, I think it may be safe to say that Ohio is going to be a safe red state, as well as Iowa. I think both of them have a very good chance of going Republican by 10 or more. And it's interesting to look at because this gives Republicans some padded advantage at the baseline electoral map here. Instead of being at 125, they're going to be up at 147. Now, it is true that states like Ohio, Pennsylvania, Michigan are going to be losing electoral votes, but it might help them in the short term that Texas is gaining, that Florida is gaining. And we'll see. But looking back at the map here, we could look at Iowa. And you saw many similar swings in the state of Iowa, especially northern and eastern Iowa, the more populous part of the country. A lot of these counties voted for Obama by double digits in 2008 and even 2012, but Donald Trump, in some of them, he was making 10-point improvements in. And much of southern Iowa did the same thing. It was actually the more traditionally Republican areas where Donald Trump underperformed, but it was slightly up in Sioux County. He underperformed last cycle by a couple percentage points, although the county is practically maxed out, so you really can't blame him for that entirely. But looking at the map, you can see that there were movements away from Trump in Johnson County, Cedar Rapids, a little bit in Des Moines, and the suburbs of Des Moines, but everywhere else was a sea of red. And it's a very rural state with a very rural population. And you had a lot of Democrats saying, oh, the trade war with China is not going to be beneficial to Trump. But the farmers, they apparently like the trade war. They are willing to sacrifice short-term losses for long-term gains. And you can see this right here because they moved in big numbers again this cycle to Donald Trump. And that's why Iowa is also going to be a state in the future that's going to be reliably red. I've always wondered why it was such a blue state. I think it's because of the difference in religion to places like Kansas and Nebraska, because it's a very similar state when you talk about demography. It's a very similar state when you look at the landscape. It's a very similar state in terms of population density. But still, it managed to be a blue state for much of this millennium until Donald Trump came around in 2016 and changed that. So very interesting out of Iowa, but Donald Trump has made Iowa a safe red state, and it can continue to get redder as time goes on. You could look at Missouri, which was a bellwether. Donald Trump won the state last time by close to 20. There was a little bit movement away from Trump in the suburbs of St. Louis, in the suburbs of Kansas City, as you can see here. But still, a lot of the rural part of the state, especially down by the Ozarks, swung into Trump's column vastly. And Missouri is another bastion of populism. These are also the places where the America First candidates will thrive in, the places that are becoming more and more Republican suddenly. You look at Josh Hawley, and I've been critical of him from time to time, but he's still one of the best senators in the Senate by far, and he came out of the state of Missouri, so it's really no surprise they were able to produce a product like him and send him to Washington, especially as the state is more populist. It's getting more right-leaning as time goes on. And you can see this here as Donald Trump won the state of Missouri by close to 16 points yet again. And Missouri is also a state that used to be a bellwether. It's safe red now. It's funny because 20 years ago, Kentucky and Tennessee, these were close states, and they're moving into the Republican column. Republicans have to analyze the map and see what they can do to cement not only Ohio and Iowa, but states like Wisconsin. Because even though Trump has technically lost the state of Wisconsin, that's what we have to say, Donald Trump still improved in many parts of rural Wisconsin, and he regressed a little bit in the Wow counties. Very interesting why that exactly happened. But still, Wisconsin, assuming there could be a rebound in 2024 in the suburbs, which is possible because I do expect the Biden administration to lose popularity. I also expect if Donald Trump doesn't run, I would say Ron DeSantis would be a great candidate. He would do extremely well in the Wow counties. So I do believe that Wisconsin is going to be a red state in the future, no matter what happens. Wisconsin may not ever go blue again in the near future. So if Wisconsin is a lean red state, you can add Wisconsin to the lean red column. Republicans already improving in the electoral map. And even if they do lose Georgia, and if they do lose the state of Arizona, assuming Colorado is gone and New Mexico, well, that's an interesting one because of the Hispanic trends, but I'm going to save that for another video. Looking at the map here and looking at the trends, that means they'll still be able to have an opportunity at victory because the map is changing. If you look at the trend here, North Carolina actually trended red. Now, U.S. Elections Atlas uses blue for Republican and red for Democrat, so don't let the map confuse you. But it did. And you look at North Carolina, another swing state, and you saw massive movements into Trump's column, especially in the rural part of the country. He did regress in suburbs like Cabarrus, he regressed in suburbs like Union, but they still voted for him in large enough numbers to get him the victory. If Trump is able to round the corner, or if Ron DeSantis or whoever the Republican nominee is able to round the corner in the suburbs and the small cities, then it is possible that North Carolina could also be a state that's lean Republican in the future, because as we know, it did trend in the Republican column, and I would expect the popular vote next cycle to be a little bit closer, especially looking at the trend map here. California and New York and New Jersey actually trended into the Republican column, believe it or not, by several percentage points. So if that trend and swing continues, that will be very beneficial for Republicans in the long term in terms of the popular vote, as well as Florida. And Florida, Trump improved vastly. He didn't even lose any ground in Hillsborough County. All these polls, the polls were wrong. The local polls were wrong as well. Donald Trump won the state of Florida by 3.3 percentage points. And he did much better than expected in counties like Duval. He lost it narrowly, but he made massive improvements in Miami-Dade. I don't think anybody in their right mind would have thought that that county would have been within 10, let alone within 7 to 8 percentage points. So if that trend continues, which I don't know how much better Republicans can do, but if they continue the improvement with Latinos, places like Osceola County, Broward County can become more Republican. And either way, I think Florida is going to be a lean Republican state for the rest of the decade. It is possible that the Democrats could do better if they ran the right candidates, but the state party is in such disarray, I don't see that happening anytime soon. So looking at Florida, if Florida's cemented in the Republican column as well, then that's 204 electoral votes. Then you say, where could they improve through the rest of the decade? What are their other strongholds? And we're going to go over to Texas, because you look at the state of Texas, you can clearly see that Republicans made massive improvements in South Texas. Now, will they continue? Yes, depending on who the Republican nominee is in 2024, but even if it is Donald Trump, I could expect him to continue the improvements among Hispanics, particularly rural Hispanics in the Panhandle in South Texas, but also you have to look at places like Harris County and Fort Bend County that really didn't trend that far away. Partially it was because of Asian voters as well as Hispanic voters in some of these places, but also keep in mind the fact that the Dallas suburbs, could they be maxing out for the Democrats as well, depending on the popularity of the Biden administration? I don't know if he's going to get these numbers again in Denton and Collin. I think the trend will slow down a little bit as it did in places like Harris County and Dallas County this cycle that made massive movements to the left last cycle. So honestly, Texas, either way, I think it's going to be lean to likely red in 2024. I think that the blue Texas, I think that I'm going to pump the brakes on it a little bit. I think it's going to slow down. I originally said 2028. We're going to have to hold off, maybe 2032 at this rate, depending on the Hispanic vote, because that is a big question mark. But even assuming Texas is lean red to likely red, that would put him at 245. Then you look at places like Pennsylvania, Michigan. Obviously, Maine's 2nd district would be enough to get him to 246, but also a state like Nevada trended to the right by several percentage points, and partially due to the massive improvements in not just the rural part of the country, but also Clark County trended, swung, moved into the Republican column, partially because of the Hispanic vote. So if Republicans are able to continue the improvement with the Hispanic vote, which I don't know how much more they'll be able to improve, but if they are able to improve, as well as see the white working class trends accelerate in their column, that means that places like Nevada will be more Republican. Nevada may be voting to the right of Arizona in the next election cycle, no matter what happens. And that is something that I predicted. A lot of people laughed at me for it, but I think this election kind of proved that that's possible. Depending on the trends around the Phoenix area, see exactly where they go. Arizona will be in play. I think it could be salvageable next cycle. Georgia, I'm skeptical about it with all of these swings in the Atlanta area, as well as any other things that are going on in the state of Georgia. But either way, it's interesting to take a look at and see where the electoral map is moving, because you do have some new Republican strongholds. Donald Trump once again hacking the electoral map, and Pennsylvania's still in play in the future. Nevada's still in play. If Trump wins both of those states next cycle, 2024, if he runs, or Ron DeSantis, whoever it is, then he will be able to get to 270. That doesn't even discount the possibility of Michigan or potentially even Minnesota in the Republican column, although after this cycle and watching what happens there, I don't know if that's going to be doable. A lot of the swings away in the suburbs, it depends. If there's a third-party candidate that takes a big chunk of votes away from the far left, then I do believe that Minnesota will be a winnable state for Republicans, but the trends around the Minneapolis suburbs, not very promising. And hopefully we could do something about it, because we don't want it to be Illinois 2.0, because those are still 10 electoral votes that are very valuable for the Republicans. So anyways, guys, thanks for watching this video. Make sure you like this video down below, comment down below, and subscribe to the channel. Hit the bell for notifications so you never miss another video. Follow me on social media, become a member, donate to the Patreon, or subscribe. Star links in the description. As always, guys, thanks for watching. Red Eagle, out.